It's certainly been a weekend of baby reindeer revelations, guys. So the real Martha has been out and about and done interviews with the Daily Record, and also there's been some Daily Mail coverage of her and coverage of her in The Sun. So she is breaking her silence, but I've noticed that no one seems to be revealing her name, although The Sun did this morning. Before we actually talk further about her, let's just talk about Nigel Farage, because I wasn't expecting a Nigel Farage baby reindeer connection, but Nigel Farage has made a video to deny that he knows the real Martha.
Baby Reindeer, it's all the rave on Netflix. Have you seen the first episode? Yeah, well, the lead character pretends she knows me. See this?
Wow, you must have amazing dinner parties.
I've got to tell you folks, I've never met this woman in my life. Not guilty.
Those of you in the know will know that the real Martha, whose name I'm not going to reveal, I'm sorry, I just don't want to take the risks. I don't know what the legal complications will be if I'm not actually allowed to say it. You know, sometimes there are different laws for different things. So let's just take, the easiest route here and just not mention her name. She does have a Facebook page, and she really is on that page going on about stuff, as well as going on about baby reindeer. She talks about other stuff too. So if you can find the page, go on there and have a look. Now be careful, because there is another page which looks just like it, which is actually fake. You want to go for the page where there is actually a picture of a human being in the profile area behind the bunch of flowers, okay? Because otherwise you're reading a fake page. But on her real page she says some interesting things. So let's have a look at this. Some of this is just fresh in the last few minutes. Have a look. She put this up just this morning saying, "This account is being shut down because it's being invaded still by Richard Gadd stalkers. It is totally unacceptable. We will be saving data and handing names to lawyers." Not sure if that's actually true, but it wouldn't surprise me if the page was going to be shut down. The bit I don't think is true is perhaps keeping all the data, sending names to lawyers, all that kind of stuff, because I imagine there's been too many to count, and it's probably best to just shut the page down. She has said other things in the page, so I'm not, like I say, I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but that's the last thing she posted. Have a look at this one. She says, "I've never fancied Richard Gadd. The day he asked me to sleep with him, he had a big green spot on his face, huge. This will amuse fans, but it's true. I obviously said no. I don't fancy him. Was this him exploring his sexuality? God only knows. He may be making up his PTSD. God only knows." Now notice how she frames things differently here and says he wanted to sleep with her. Because in the show, the guy at the pub sends a message to her which Richard didn't actually send, and it causes that huge kind of fracas between them. But later on in the show, we see Richard getting rather sexually turned on by the idea of Martha with his girlfriend Terry and by himself at home. But I don't remember a moment where he actually explicitly asked her to sleep with him, but she says he did. So there you go, that's just an interesting thing she brought up. Now obviously we have to understand that we can't necessarily take everything she says as the honest truth. But have a look at this post here, because this, for me, explained perhaps a more real idea here, a more realistic idea of what situation she's in. Let's look. "Just to let you know, I'm still getting abusive comments from the fans of Gadd, who are less than impressive intellectually on Yahoo sites, etc. It's vile misogyny. We continue to keep a list for lawyers and police, just so you have been warned again. None of these people know me. On the Yahoo site they are American. The behaviour is bang out of order, and I don't think they even have seen the show. If hounding makes them feel good, fine, but they should really be seeing their shrinks. Netflix shares blame here too. They should not be producing material targeting an individual. It's called incitement to hatred. It's a very serious crime. A friend from America sent me this stuff." Now interestingly, I actually looked up what she said there, incitement to hatred, and thought, okay, let's see if it really is a serious crime or a crime at all. And lo and behold, it appears on the Metropolitan Police's website as indeed a crime. And this is what they describe it as. "The offence of incitement to hatred occurs when someone acts in a way that is threatening and intended to stir up hatred. This could be in words, pictures, video, music, and includes information posted on website. Hate content may include messages calling for violence against a specific person or group, web pages that show pictures, videos, or description of violence against anyone due to their perceived differences, chat forums where people ask people to commit hate crimes against a specific person or group. Now, this could be happening on some of the sites that she is mentioning, but I don't know because she mentions Yahoo. I'm not sure whether she actually means Yahoo or she means Reddit or other forums like that. But the point here is that the stalkers become the stalked. If we're to believe this is all genuine, the stalkers become the stalked. And I do feel like when the show came out, there were articles, as I've mentioned in previous videos, where Richard Gadd said, no, the real Martha didn't go to prison, she was mentally ill, and I didn't feel like she'd get the help she needed in prison. So instead what's happening is, the show is out, the real Martha, who's probably been laying low now for several years, is uncovered and now targeted by everyone who's watching the show, and could end up being stalked far worse than Richard Gadd ever was. Because even though Richard Gadd's Edinburgh shows and theatre shows were successful, they were not successful to the level that millions of people around the world could see them. Thousands could, but not millions. So the numbers are far greater here. So I am concerned that what's happening is a mentally ill person is now going to get stalked, which is only going to make her more mentally ill and make her more erratic and fire back at people, and who knows what else is going to happen. So if her Facebook page does go down, it might be a good thing because it might kind of unplug her from social media altogether, which is probably good for her safety, I would say. But there we go. So that's what's currently happening. We'll see if that actually happens. It may or may not. Let's move on to Darrien. This is a very difficult one to talk about, but, you know, we'll talk about it anyway. This is how Richard kind of presented it in his shows. So this is a clip from his original show in which the essay was mentioned. The show was called Monkey See, Monkey Do. There were video clips on a screen in his show, and then he spoke afterwards.
You're probably wondering why the old doctor there has lost his googly eyes. Any chest cuts? Gotta break the tension, guys. Gotta break the tension. I never had any homosexual feelings before the incident. I could never tell whether those feelings were in me and I'd never acknowledged them before, never even thought about them, or whether the incident had created them in me, made me pathologize the event to such a degree that I started to question everything about myself. Either way, they're there now, and that's fine. I used to hate that side of myself. I used to go to bed at night and wish I could wake up in the morning and wouldn't be there anymore. I liked who I was before. But now, 6 years on, I think bisexuality is pretty cool. It means that every one of you here tonight can strike lucky, baby! I used to blame myself so much for what happened. Why did I drink it? How could I be so fucking naive? My fault, his fault, my fault, his fault, my fault, his fault, my fault, his fault. And all of a sudden 6 years have passed, and I'm not young anymore. In some ways I wished it was my fault. Like if anyone was going to fuck up my life, I'd want it to be me. But it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And I don't know how I feel about that yet. I do not have those answers. But I did make 3 mistakes on the way, right? 3 mistakes on the way. 3 mistakes. Okay, 3 mistakes. Right? Mistake number 1, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I mean, I was practically asking for it. Am I right, ladies? I'm joking. I'm joking. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 1. Tying the incident into this idea that I was no longer a man anymore. This idea that I'd been feminized. It's funny. Out of all the things that bothered me, and trust me, there was a lot that bothered me. There was a lot that bothered me. The one thing that bothered me most, and it seems ridiculous in retrospect, the one thing that bothered me the most, the one thing that bothered my monkey the most, this idea that I was no longer a man. This idea that I'd been feminized. And 6 years on, what is masculinity? What does that really mean? It's just a word. Just just a box for people to put things in. It doesn't exist. And I let it bother me for 6 years. And if masculinity does exist, then masculinity is the problem with everything. It's the problem on my side in terms of not speaking out, but it's the problem on the other side as well in terms of doing something like this in the first place. A lack of power in a man's head driving him towards primal sexual monkey dominance. Masculinity creates wars. Femininity doesn't create wars. What women do we know have created wars, invaded other countries? Well, Thatcher in Argentina, but she had a big iron cock. I'm absolutely convinced. Mistake number 2. I thought that if I stayed silent and kept it to myself, did enough exercise, went out every morning and I ran, and I ate the right food, and I read the right books, and I meditated, then one day I'd wake up and the monkey wouldn't be there anymore. It'd be like a bad breakup. But I've come to realise that this is always going to be a part of my life. The monkey's always going to be there. And instead of fighting against him, I now need to learn to work with him. And that goes 2 ways. He needs to learn to work with me too. For example, he did not want me to do this show. He did not want me to do this show. He was worried people would judge. He was worried I'd tell it wrong. He was worried that people would think I was making up. He was worried that people from my school would come down. He was worried that people who came to see Waiting for Gaddo will come and see this and think, what the flying fuck is he doing? But I had to do it. I had to. And ever since I started doing it, that monkey voice has got that little bit quieter, that little bit smaller, that little bit less aggressive. All the important people in my life know inner judgment has been replaced with conversation, silence with acceptance. And I think of all those tight chests I could have saved, all that running to forget, all the endless therapy, had I just spoken about it sooner. Sometimes the thought of something can be scarier than the thing itself. The third mistake was putting this show in the comedy section.
Now, I believe that show was around 2019. And in episode 4 of Baby Reindeer, Richard is focusing on, I think, 2015, which is when he took his first show to Edinburgh. And that's where he meets Darrien, and Darrien helps him with his show, makes it better, it becomes a great success. And you know the tragedy that unfolds after that. I won't say any more than that, but if you've seen the episode, you know it is obviously being earmarked as the most intense and difficult episode to watch. Now, I can't name who people think Darrien is. I did that previous video where we talked about Sean Foley being falsely accused of it. But now internet sleuths have come up with someone else which seems far more credible. I've got to be honest, far more credible. But I don't want to mention their name because obviously then I'm putting myself in a difficult situation legally. So what I'm going to do instead is just point you to an area where you may or may not get a clue. And leave it at that, alright? So, I think last week or the week before, to celebrate the release of Baby Reindeer, the Herald newspaper in Scotland decided to dig through their archives and reprint an interview with Richard Gadd from 2018 or 19, right? In which they're asking him about the Edinburgh Festival and his past experiences there. Now, his first show, which I believe is the one he focuses on in Baby Reindeer, was called Cheese and Crack Whores. And he talks about it in this interview. So, if you go onto the Herald newspaper website, you'll find an article called Before Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd on Edinburgh Fringe and Eating Soap. Now, if you read through that, you'll see Richard talking about his experiences of his first Edinburgh, and you can make of that what you will. Because bear in mind, this interview would have taken place before the assault in episode 4 happened. So, yeah, have a look at that, and we'll see how things develop from there. Because I think everyone wants to see the real Darrien caught and prosecuted for what he did to Richard and what he has probably done to many other people in the comedy world. So there you go, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video as much as you can enjoy a video about this kind of subject matter. Thanks for watching, and catch you later for something else. Goodbye.